Hello, everyone, and welcome to the JMAA Live Deluxe podcast. I'm your host, JMAA Eniol, and apparently Fungus is not gonna be on like the podcast yet because she's basically asleep. But we got a little bit of a guest to like make up for like the absence. So we got Keith Hutchings, the person behind the affordable home project, I think, or like I don't exactly remember the name of that organization apparently because I did my research, but I got like a little bit of like memory lagoons here. But yeah, here's Keith. Can you like introduce yourself for a bit to see what you're up to or whatever?
So yeah, Affordable Home Project sounds like a good organization, but what I am the founder of an organization called the Comfortable Home Project,
Ah, yeah,
and
that's
we
the
are
thing. Yeah.
in yes, and we are in Perth, Australia. And what I'm working on doing is promoting energy efficient housing to help people know that they have a choice to live in a home if they're building a house that has essentially minimal or no energy expenses over the life of the home.
Yeah. So you
We
mean like solar energy and all that stuff?
So there's two different things. So solar, when you talk about solar energy, that's you put the panels on the roof of your house, and they create electricity, and then you use something like an air conditioner to cool or heat the house to make it comfortable. And what we're talking about is a process that's called passive solar design, which is where you design the house in a way that in the winter you bring the sun into the house and warm the house up with the sun heating the mass of the house. And in the summer, you try and keep the sun out of the house, and then you also design the house to catch the prevailing breeze that comes
Mm-hmm.
through
Yeah.
and flush the day's heat out. So the house by design, because technology will always eventually fail. I think the lifespan of a solar panel is somewhere between 12 and 25 years. But there are houses in Turkey that are 5,000 years old and they still function as passive solar houses. They are still comfortable to be in most days of the year with no energy at all, just by the design of the home.
Yeah. So you mean like basically giving like affordable energy to like people in poverty or something, right? Like actually sort of working out ways to like give comfort, like sort of like affordable energy to like people that can afford like a decent house or whatever.
Well, the thing is, right now, most of the people who are building these kind of houses, that's really the mission of the Comfortable Home Project, is to get ordinary people. You know, what's been happening up until now is that it's people who are paying for architect designed houses that are getting a passive solar house. They're getting an energy efficient house. And if they can afford an architect, a they can afford their energy bills, and then they end up living in a house with no energy bills. And what a big part of what we're doing is just trying to let ordinary people know, you know,
Like
our
you mean middle
parents
class
know,
people, right? Or
middle class people that they could live in a house that saves them. Here in Australia, the average energy bill, it the average family spends between $1,500 and $2,000 a year on energy,
mm-hmm.
and roughly half of that is going to be their air conditioner if they have an air conditioner in their house. And we have a situation here in Australia where a lot of people have houses have been built with no air conditioning. We've just had a heat wave and a bunch of people died. Usually it's the elderly, and
Yeah.
often because they're on fixed incomes, if they do have an air conditioner, they're reluctant to use it because they can't afford the cost of it. So there is, what part of what we're trying to do is get the attention of governments and say, if you are building affordable housing, it needs, or social housing, it needs to be designed in a way that the people living in the house don't have any energy expenses, and that's possible to do. So it is really important that we get this message to the people who are making these kind of decisions, because right now what they're building is, well, it's mostly crap.
Yeah, it's
uh,
mostly crap in the regards that people cannot afford the energy to like sort of have like air conditioning enough to survive the heat, isn't it?
exactly. Or you being in Europe, dealing with the cold, and a properly designed house will just be. So we back in June, I went to a house and to do one of the interviews, which is up on my website, and it was just freezing outside. I mean, freezing what we get for here, which is, I think it was about 6 degrees Celsius outside,
Yeah,
which
it
is
well
cold.
depends. If you're like an Australian who constantly lives under the heat of Australia, you're not well used to like the cold of Europe, because usually Europe, at least in the north of Europe, is like really extremely cold and cloudy and everything or whatever. I live in like a northern part of Spain, right? And like it's mostly rainy and slightly cold in here. Maybe someone who lives in Australia isn't well used to like the usual cold that we live in here in San Sebastian, right? But like, yeah, it depends on the situation mostly, because it's about, I think it's about like people being able to afford the energy costs to like sort of have either air conditioning or like heat in their house. And like, especially considering the whole housing crisis that we got in here, especially like house prices is like constantly go up, but like the salaries of people constantly go down or like get stagnant at some point, which
That they
it's
stayed the
their,
same.
yeah, they stay basically the same, and but the house prices keep going up, and that's at most of the Western world, in America and Europe, or say in Australia even, which, yeah, it's pretty bad, to say the least. It's pretty fucking bad, and like, honestly, it's a horrible reality we have to live in. Honestly, myself, I basically try to earn a living aside of my shitty office job to like be able to sort of afford a house, and like to be able to get out of my parents' house or whatever. And Jesus fucking Christ, I seen prices like of houses up go to like sort of 80,000 at least to live in a modest apartment here nearby. And it's, I don't know, it's crap. It's pure crap, honestly. Like, I don't know how, like especially considering Spain, there's like immense housing prices compared to like the rest of Europe, and it's the reality of Spain compared to like the rest of Europe. It's pretty bad in terms of like the housing crisis in here, because I remember the days of like the constant building and building and building of houses in Spain from literally anywhere, and there's a lot of speculation in the housing market as well. So like even more than anywhere else in the world, apparently, in Spain at least. So it's no doubt that that like a lot of this shit is coming from a lot of speculation from like the housing market, where it's pretty shitty business, at least. What do you think about it?
Well, the thing for me, well, we've those kind of things can only be fixed across the government. And what we've and but I don't have the patience for dealing with governments. I tend to be, yeah, I think if I tried to do things like building code change, yeah, there's a lot of shadiness. So what we focused on is consumer led demand. That what we want is for people to know that they have choices in how they live, the way they live, so that, because most people think, oh yeah, my only choice is apartment or house. It's
Yeah,
the, it's very simple, and we just have to accept what's on offer. And I want to get to a point where people are saying, yeah, no, we're not going to stand for this shit anymore. We will not buy. your crappy, expensive, badly built houses. And that's the only way. But right now, people don't actually know that they have a choice, that things could be different from the way they are right now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So not long ago, there was like a volcano in the Canary Islands in Spain, and like a
yep.
lot of houses got sunk in by the lava and everything. I mean, what kind of shit do you do with that when like people could like have this kind of shitty houses in the middle of a fucking volcano and like honestly getting blown apart by lava and shit? Like, what do you do with that? Like, it's pretty fucking
Well,
ugly.
that is nature, and nature is very powerful. There's not a lot we can do about those kind of things. People live in those places that possibly they never should have lived in, and usually that's the poor people. It's not, the rich people can leave. And but what we can do is design our. I mean, you can't build a house that's going to withstand a volcano, you know. So
No,
that isn't
yeah.
going to happen. But you can build a house that can just be designed to survive a hurricane. You can build a house that is designed to work with the climate. What we see here in Australia is our houses, they don't actually, they they match up to the climate that a bureaucrat in London had the delusion that houses were built. So we have a lot of houses here that have no heating in them whatsoever. They're designed for the heat of summer, but
Mm-hmm.
when it gets down to 1 or 2 degrees in the morning in winter, that's awfully cold. Um, so what we need to do is build our houses, is design our houses for the climate that we have in the places where we live. Here in Australia, there are 7 different climatic zones, and the houses, but we only have one building code. The building code works maybe for one of those zones. It doesn't really. It's pretty crap. But we should have a different building code for each of those climatic regions, requiring the houses to be built in a way. Up north here, we get cyclones and everything coming through, and the houses have to be built in a way to
Yeah,
withstand
so
that.
they resist cyclone and everything, right?
Yeah, yeah. The roofs have twice as many screws on them, so the roofs don't rip off and all those kind of things. But that's to a specific area, but really all of Australia. And the problem here, you mentioned the corruption. We have a lot of the what's called regulatory capture. The property developers and the building industry own the politicians, and they say, no, sorry, we don't want to build our houses better than that because that'll cost us money, and we don't want to ruin our profits. So, but that's why I focus on consumer demand. Um, the story I like to tell in how we can change this, if we get better at talking about it,
Yeah.
is, do you remember, probably your parents had one of those black phones, the old Bakelite phones? I'm making gestures, which really works well on
Well,
an
you mean
audio
like those
podcast.
bricky phones that were
Yeah,
immensely huge,
yeah,
right? Like, I don't know.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
remember
I've got
like,
one here. Here, let me show you so you know what I'm talking about.
yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I don't know if like
Or
the people here on the podcast can see it, but yeah, I remember that
no,
kind of shit.
your parents, maybe your grandma has one of these, and they were great phones
Yeah,
because when my sister would piss me off, I could slam the phone down, and it was really satisfying to slam that
yeah,
phone down.
fucking slap the shit out of it.
Yeah, you know, call
Even
me
then, you
again.
you try that with like a regular cell phone or like a smartphone or whatever,
You
and
you
like
can't
it
do
fucking
that
goes
with
to
an
shit.
iPhone. No. But 2005, Steve Jobs came out with the iPhone, released it, and somebody gave me that phone. Like, You know, 25 years ago, that was the shit. That was a great phone to have, and everybody had one in their house. And then suddenly, 5 years later, you could not give one of those fuckers away. I would go to garage sales, and people would be like, if I give you $5, will you take this thing away for me?
Yeah, isn't that iPhone pretty resistant to faults too, or whatever? Or like breaking the screen or whatever? Or is it just me? Because I
Yeah,
do use.
yeah, they're delicate as shit, and you can't slam them and say, "Don't call me again, you asshole." You have to like
Yeah,
just touch the button delicately. There's no satisfaction, but you've got 1,000 songs in your pocket and all that kind of shit, So the the housing, the way we're talking about housing,
yeah,
is as much the difference between the old black Bakelite phone and the iPhone in terms of its value as a home.
mm-hmm,
It's
yeah,
it's 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 a home that you're comfortable in, and that's really the big difference. And you can talk about the building industry, but the building industry, the property developers, if they don't have a market, if people won't buy their houses, then that's what they do for a living. So if they can't sell their product, they're not going to sell their product. And that's what we have to change is people just going, yeah, no, sorry, I don't want that shit. And
yeah.
that's what we're working on.
Yeah, that's really good, honestly. And I was about to comment something in regards of like renting or buying houses because quite frankly we got like a little bit of a tendency. I don't think this is like necessarily like a right wing conspiracy theory as they say on multiple occasions, but it's a regular thing in capitalism as well, right? Where there's a tendency of having to rent everything instead of owning anything and like still being happy about it. Which I mean, we rent not just our houses at this point because like the disparity between the poor and the rich is pretty immense, but also we tend to rent anything else like cars, washing machines, movie subscription services, games, or all sorts of shit. They moving towards a model where like instead of like owning a house which lasts forever at least, you have to rent the house and you're subjected to the conditions that renting a house is pretty much into. I think is the inner consequence of like making housing so goddamn expensive and sort of having such a disparity between poor and rich people that is incredibly immense because I mean it's still like a huge funnel of money, isn't it? Like it's still like funnels a lot of money from people who cannot afford to own a house. And what's your thoughts about it?
There's a really interesting thing here in Australia because a government that we had, a conservative government back in the 1960s, wanted to break the power of the unions and the power of the Communist Party, who fed from the unions. And what they realized is that Australian working people were a nation of renters. And if you're a renter and you decide to go on strike, and so the company, the factory closes, you can just load everything in the back of the station wagon, move to the next city, and get a new job. So, what they decided to do here in Australia is turn the working class into a nation of homeowners because then they have the sunk cost of, you can't quit your job because you've paid, $100,000 on your mortgage. And if you quit your job, the mortgage, and that will be the end of that. Um, and so a lot more people are homeowners here in Australia. The interesting thing with the European model is that you have people who you have more tenancy protections. Um,
Mm-hmm.
where people can stay in the same place. The other thing that's really been interesting that I've been looking at I don't know how much they do this in Spain, but in parts of Germany, they have this process called the Baugruppen, where a group of people will come together and they will become their own property developer. So they will pool their money, they'll buy the land, and they'll design the building that suits there. So, like, say you've got a whole bunch of young families, so they build the house so it's like a big square box, but or the apartment block, because
Yeah.
this is often as many as like 40 families. But they'll put a central courtyard in, so the kids have a place to play and things where it's safe, because you can't leave the courtyard, and n- nobody else can come into it who doesn't live in that building. So that's the way that in some parts of Europe people have gotten around it. It's an interesting thing because other people that I've spoken to in Europe talk about how being renters gives them a lot of freedom, where when you own your own home, you're kind of trapped in that place. So, but yeah, the whole culture is changing to this. I mean, there are companies now that are coming out with cars that in order to turn on certain features, you have to do it as a subscription. The car doesn't come with that feature, like that you can start it with a remote starter from inside the house if it's cold. You have to pay a certain amount a month for it. And yeah, but this is a problem because we as consumers are distracted and are it's like there's a lot of talk in America about the right to repair and the
Yeah,
John
I heard
Deere.
about it. Louis Rossman,
Yeah,
especially, like, does a lot to talk about the right to repair and everything, but he especially also like tackle this issue of like renting everything, owning nothing, and being happy about it. Yeah, I
yeah.
think I remember about it.
So the thing for me is like, well, why would anybody buy a John Deere tractor? Because you are not allowed to. You can only use their rep, and only their rep can connect their machine to it to diagnose it and things like that. And I was just like, why would you buy a John Deere? But the people are still running down to the John Deere place and spending $300,000 and then complaining. It's like, well, you were warned. Why did so? It's we as consumers need to go. Yes, sorry, we're not playing anymore. Um, and that's part of that comes from people being informed, people learning that they have choices, and then feeling like they have some power to do something about it.
Yeah,
That
so like I especially hear the John Deere case because I think they'll probably have some primitive kind of technology, especially if you try to install like some sort of like custom thing on the BIOS of a tractor from John Deere. They will automatically soft block itself. I think it happens also with like iPhones when like you try to install some custom hardware into it, or like it happens mostly with a lot of like devices as well, but housing, I don't know about it, but like this on housing, there's a lot of things regarding like basic house tax and electricity and everything that relies on like this renting model. So yeah, it's pretty ugly,
well,
honestly.
yeah, that's what we have to start changing that. So a friend of mine does power. We started talking about solar, and what he does is he sets up solar systems in buildings, and basically the solar and the battery, and then
Yeah.
sells the solar to the tenants in the building. So he has become a power company for that individual building that he's set up.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, but if you get a group of people together, they pool whatever money they have. They say they design the building, maybe because you're young and you don't have a lot of money, you build a building that's very, very simple, and then you add sort of fancier things to it. Like some people I knew that they built a building, they knew that they were all young, but they all planned on living there till they were old. So when they designed the building, they put in a shaft for the elevator. But the elevator itself was going to cost them like a $500,000 or something. So they simply didn't install the elevator. They just said, we'll use the stairs for the next 15 years and then we'll put the elevator in. So we have a lot of power if we have the knowledge and the do the thinking to say, yeah, okay. So we can get together. We can build a building that's more like a warehouse. We put up some simple walls into it, and then we'll make it fancier later. We'll put the
Yeah.
elevator in later. And but the other thing is then starting with putting that solar system in so that you have you have the savings because all of those things that you're renting, as you say, they all have a cost. You get a bunch of people together, and instead of owning 15 cars, you own one car. And, so you only use the car when you need it. And this is happening in a lot of cities, these ride share arrangements or, shared vehicles and things. And so, we have to fight back against this. And I keep seeing these things. I love every time I see them on you know, in the newspaper. Millennials are ruining, car manufacturers because they're
Yeah.
not buying cars. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's because you're building shitty cars. So stop doing that. And then they'll buy cars. My son's 28 and he and his girlfriend just bought their first car because they
Yeah,
live in
what I
Melbourne.
really miss, honestly, is having like, if I had like a driver's license, I'll get myself a fucking like Chrysler Dodge. That fucking shit is cool. I miss
Yeah.
that. I miss that type of cars. I know they got like severe CO2 emissions or whatever, but I can easily tune it out with like more efficient or like eco-friendly energy or whatever, or like any kind of eco-friendly gas or whatever, and like sort it out. At the least, if I have the disposable income for it for a Chrysler Dodge or whatever, that's probably second hand, and also like the modifications to be able to like sort of build it so it's eco-friendly, kind of like up to like my standards of like living, like I'm fucking dreaming this shit, like an eco-friendly
Yes.
Chrysler
Yes.
Dodge, but like
Yes.
I miss that type of cars, honestly. They have more style into it,
Oh,
even, right?
there's some guys in America that are taking those old cars like that where they've maybe they've got a blow-in motor and they're turning them into EVs. They're filling the trunk with batteries and under the back seat putting another bank of
Yeah, kind
batteries.
of like electric cars or something, right?
Well, they're an electric car. Yeah, they take but I said but they don't have the sound. The sound of a V8, that low rumble.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
sound of
and
like Harley Davidson chopper. That holy
yeah,
shit. It's like
yeah,
it's like
we want that.
hell freezing over. It's like the sound of the apocalypse, you know?
That's it. That's it. I said to a guy on a social media post where he showed this picture. I said, all we need is to mount some speakers in the wheel wells to get that rumble going. Because if it doesn't sort of give you that feeling in your gut when it's sitting there idling, then but yeah, you could do that with some nice bass speakers in the wheel wells, and it would work just as well. And then, of course, you have infinite torque, because somebody
Yeah.
was saying, with EVs, that part of the problem is they've got so much torque that they actually wear through their tires faster. This is, one of the lame excuses that the fossil fuel industry don't buy an EV because you'll make more microplastics. from
Yeah,
the
like
tires
it's
where
very weird because a lot of the problems coming from like climate change and everything comes especially from the fact that it's like oil barons and like crypto miners and everything, and they're doing the most of the damage to the environment they can, but they have to like sort of deflect it into common ground citizens as to say, hey, if you don't eat meat, you'll pollute the environment even more. Like, oh, sorry, but it's not up to us really. It's not
yeah,
up
well
to us.
that
It's up to
was
like the politicians and oil barons to do a goddamn thing about it, not the common ground average law-abiding citizen. You know?
well, yeah, that was what the whole carbon footprint was a big scam. It was like you have to take personal responsibility. We're not going to take any responsibility for that because that would ruin our shareholder value. And it's like, no, no, you are the cause of this. And yeah, it's a thing that I get quite passionate about is, the fossil fuel industry in the US alone has been spending $1 billion a year on PR campaigns to try and convince people to not do anything about climate change. And, anytime you see these guys that are going, oh, yeah, climate change is fake, it's just a myth,
Yeah,
it's
Koch
something made
brothers
up by
propaganda
goons,
for most of the part. Yeah, it's basically
they're
Koch
being
brothers
paid by
propaganda shit.
they're getting paid by the fossil fuel industry
Yeah,
um,
and yeah,
to, to say those things. And so yes, and it'll keep going and but we have to pull them up on it and go, yeah, no, this is bullshit.
yeah,
So
especially when you have to consider there's a lot of goons like Ben Shapiro and like Steven Crowder and all these fucking morons fucking boosting up the Koch brothers top propaganda shit about climate change. And it's pretty fucking obvious. They got the fucking entire blame on this shit. But even then, they have to put the blame on us for like, oh, eating meat or something. What's that gonna change? Our oceans are fucking burning. What? Is the ocean fucking burning because I didn't eat a fucking steak or something? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
yes, yeah, it is, and it's this kind of blame shifting of and then people are buying into it, and it's
Yeah.
and in some ways there is truth to it, but then there's also like, we the West Australian government is just in the process of approving this natural gas processing plant here, which I think is going to be one of the largest in the world. And in the lifetime of that, it will basically produce something like 1 billion tons of carbon. And it's like, yeah, there is, until the government wants to do something about that. So we've got an election coming up soon, and I'm hoping that changes some things. But
Yeah.
yeah, what really needs to happen is that people have to realize how much power they have. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, the when a lot of the archives out of the Nixon administration, going back to the 1960s and early 1970s, and those guys were just going nuts from paranoia because they were terrified of the power of the people that were marching in the streets against the Vietnam War. But the people who were marching in the streets, they were thinking like, oh, what good is this? We're not doing anything. But the guys in the Nixon administration in the federal government in America were absolutely shitting themselves.
Yeah.
And we have that power. They only rule with our permission. And right now they're being really good about creating this tribalism, separating the two different groups. You're either on my side or you're again, but and it's all a gigantic con. And once people
Yeah,
figure out,
any
oh,
electoral system is a con in the sense that we're allowing ourselves to get ruled by a bunch of Henry Kissinger tier shit.
Well, I tend to be an optimist. I am by nature an optimist. And I believe, and I also, I've met a bunch of politicians at
Hmm.
various times. I have worked for people within the political system, and they were people on my side of politics. I'm a hardcore lefty, so they were either sort of left or really left,
Hmm.
but they
Yeah.
were good people. So I don't like the painting of all politicians are scammers and
No,
crooks and
yeah,
things.
I understand that. And like, there's people like Bernie Sanders still who, even then, that are in the Democratic Party, they're still serving a lot of leftist, actual leftist politics. Because in America, there's a tendency of like having either center right people having to rule everything, or like either extreme right people, which
Yeah.
is a reality because America is currently like a right wing country at this point, for the regards that nearly all
Well,
presidents have been ruling from either the neoliberal standard or like either super fascist right wing shit, you know?
yeah, yeah. So that's the side. Yes, America has shifted way far to the right. Um, Australia is far. Even our conservative party is far less conservative, but they'd like to go there. They would, our current
Yeah, I like
batch
to imagine
conservative
that. Yeah.
government, they have wet dreams about the looking at
Segregation,
our, because we have
gentrification.
all those things, the rent seeking, that you were talking about earlier, but
Yeah.
also like we have a healthcare system, we have socialized medicine here, and you can see our government is looking at the American system and with a bit of drool running down the side of their face because it's like there's so much fucking money to be made for their mates and their supporters. So they want to pull the country in that direction of the kind of extreme capitalism that America has become. But
Yeah, like there's a lot of leaders in the Western world that try to emulate what America is doing in regards of government, and like, why would you want to do that? Like, most of the regular people who like sort of, look at the United States, like, do look at the United States in spite of what it represents, and not as a referent and a example of how should be the standard of like the Western civilization and that sort of shit. It's fucking terrifying, honestly.
well,
That
it's
a
that
lot of
that
our
great
leaders are,
line.
yeah,
Yeah, it's that great line from Gandhi. Has always been a favorite of mine. The journalist asked him, "What do you think of Western civilization?" And he said, "I think it would be a really good idea. Um, it'd be nice if they became civilized." Yes.
yeah,
Uh, the
yeah. Sort of like going in their tanks and their guns and their bombs. Yeah, that true shit. Oh
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes,
lots of
yes.
guns, especially lots of guns.
Well, yeah. Well,
They
they
sure love their guns, honestly. Jesus
yeah,
fucking
it's
Christ.
crazy. Yeah, I've no desire to be back. You may have noticed from the accent, I am an American, but I've lived here in Australia for 30 years, and I have no
Yeah.
desire to be back there. There's parts of it I miss, but I've got a few friends there still. But shit is crazy over there, and yeah, they're just obsessed with guns. So
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to me. But
Yeah, that's your typical day at Burger Land, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, well, yeah, but and then I walk around in the streets and most people just look unhappy. So I
Yeah, isn't
just
that
like,
weird?
yeah, but the thing is, it's that extreme of, if you're in like say a local hardware store, then the people there they're just ordinary people. They're middle class people, they're working class people,
Yeah.
and they're getting screwed. Where then there's this level of wealth and you don't see them out and about, but
Yeah.
they're having the
Very
time of their
screwed,
lives.
indeed.
Yeah, so but we have, this in America, we have this system of tribalism that has, that has, you know, 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 that has, separated people, and it's been so effective. You know, you're a green and I'm a blue, and we won't talk to each other, so we won't actually notice that we're both getting
Yeah.
shafted. And what we're both doing is fighting for the interests of the billionaires. So
Yeah. Sad
yes,
reality, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
so I wanted to bring you another important topic: the impact crypto mining has on the environment, especially because you're kind of like the sort of expert on like environmental issues as well. So I wanted to see if you got something in regards of like the environmental
Quite
impact of crypto
honestly,
mining.
I don't know anything about crypto mining. I do know that it requires a lot of energy, and that, probably most of your listeners, as young people, they'd probably know more about NFTs and
Yeah,
crypto
we're
mining and
just
all
a
that
bunch
kind
of
of shit.
zoomers, honestly. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Except me, I'm
something,
just a millennial piece of shit.
mu- yeah, I will not accept a, oh yeah, no, I'm confusing my computer. Uh, get bound on the table. Um, so I work with a lot of young people. I love working with young people. So, it's gonna make a millennial piece of shit thing. I'm gonna just unplug this web.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's yeah. It was
I keep wanting to
it was
turn on.
I was just fucking with yeah. Anyway, but yeah, like a lot
Exactly.
of
Yeah, to use the tech. So, the what I see. So let's take it down that millennial piece of shit track rather than because I couldn't even bullshit about crypto mining, cryptocurrencies. I just, if the subject comes up in a podcast, I turn it off. So, can't tell you anything. Is it good? Is it
yeah.
bad? I don't know.
I know. I
But
thought you knew something about it or something, right? Or whatever.
no, no, not at all. I've stayed right away from it. I've
Oh
really
yeah.
focused on housing, and I believe that everybody needs to do something about climate change. For some people, that's marching in the streets, the Extinction Rebellion people,
Mm-hmm.
gluing yourself to the roadways, whatever. That's other people who are working within companies to change the way. But my focus ha- has been to change the way we build housing here. So. Um, that's the important thing for me. Now, I've done something weird and I've lost my image of you. Let me see if I can. Oh, there
Yeah.
you are. You're back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry. I
Yeah.
just moved my mouse. And it was, I'm not used to Discord. I'm an old guy.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
it's
nice to make fun of
understandable.
me.
You don't have to worry about it, anything at all. Just it's just understandable. But yeah, I
Yes.
was gonna bring a
Let's
lot.
circle back to this thing about millennials because I really like the millennials, the Gen Zs, these younger people. And I particularly like this aspect of the like, why should I own a car? Like, in my
Yeah,
generation, the thing was as soon as you graduated from high school, you bought a car. And it was like, it was the automatic thing. And now they're going, but I live in a city. Cars are a pain in the ass. Why would I do that? Why would I spend five
yeah.
grand a year?
Well, a lot of
There's
us
all
will
these
spend a
things.
lot of time instead of owning a house or a car. We'll spend a lot of time wasting it on like I don't know Netflix or say I don't know whatever Whopper there is in Burger King or whatever or something or like whatever
Yeah,
Domino's got about their bat pizza. Have you ever heard about the bat pizza? Or from like I think it was from Domino's or something or Papa John's, but there was like the Batman pizza, and it's like a pizza shaped like a bat for some reason.
no, I don't eat a lot of fast food, so
No,
I did
yeah,
not hear about
yeah,
that. Yeah,
you're not missing much. I mean, it looks pretty ugly, honestly.
yeah, yeah. It
Yeah,
sounds kind of weird, really.
it's just
But
weird.
but that's this idea of living experiences, and that was kind of how I lived when I was young. I worked in the theater. I was a theater tech, and then I spent my summers traveling. And I got to a point where I was 30 years old, and I had no assets. I lived out of a backpack, and that's how it was when I met my wife. I had, sort of 5 boxes of things.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of it. I think that there's a whole lot of, one of the things that I've been looking at is marketing. And because we're trying to create a cultural change. And I say to people that climate change is a marketing problem, not a technical problem. And what a
Yeah.
lot of young people have done is they have said, we're not buying the marketing anymore. We're being marketed to all the time. We're going to choose what we believe. And when you study marketing, you learn things like in America, it is expected that you will have, the traditional American breakfast is orange juice and bacon and eggs.
Yeah.
And the orange juice and the bacon were both marketing campaigns. This guy,
Mm-hmm.
so there was a big, I think his name was Ben Beniers. He was like the biggest marketer in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
And this company went to him and they said, we've just doubled our production of how fast they could produce, turn pigs into bacon. But we haven't worked out how to sell more bacon. And now suddenly have twice as much bacon as we did before. Can you help us? And he created the whole idea of having bacon with your breakfast. Before that, bacon was like a travel food because it was salty
Yeah.
and so it would keep.
Mm-hmm.
And ordinary people didn't eat bacon. You certainly didn't eat it for breakfast every day. And orange juice was almost the exact same story. All of these orange groves came online down in Florida, and they were like, "Holy shit, we are producing 40 times more orange juice than we did before, but nobody's buying orange juice because it doesn't
Yeah,
actually even
well, and it
taste very
happens the
nice."
same with the eggs and the bacon, isn't it? Like I remember there was like a lot of surplus of eggs, and like they had to sell all the eggs, so they like implemented this huge marketing strategy on the eggs, especially, right? That's why we have in America they have like the eggs, bacon, and orange juice breakfast that you say,
Exactly.
right?
And the diamond ring is another thing. The diamond was basically a waste product. It's an industrial product. You use it for cutting shit. And they said,
Mm-hmm.
well, we got a lot of these things. Let's sell more of them. And they went to this guy and he invented the idea that you should spend a month's salary on your engagement ring for your future wife. And if you don't spend a month's salary on it, you're a schlub. And now
Yeah.
suddenly young people are going, I can get an industrial, what do they call them? A Morrisite?
Mm-hmm.
Or I can get a man-made stone for the tenth the cost of that. I'd rather put the deposit on a house. And they're saying, fuck you to the diamond industry.
Yeah,
And
but yeah,
because they're like, this
it's a
thing
lot of
was a
marketing. Yeah.
scam.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
marketing shit, and especially considering I tend to do the same than you do, especially in terms of marketing, because I think I'm trying. What I'm trying to do is like make an important change to the world in some way in the future, and what I tend to mostly focus on is the way I market myself and the way I brand myself. So like it goes up to the standards of like trying to compete with the capitalist and fascist system in every single conceivable way, especially in marketing. Because I remember back in like the 2016 marketing wars, like I mean meme wars or whatever. I remember I escaped from the far right ages ago, right? And like there
Mm,
was like this whole thing about meme warfare going on. It involved a lot of marketing here, especially
yeah.
for the far right. So in the same way, I could use the same meme warfare tactics on against the far right to like sort of market myself and the left into sort of like superiority or something, right? Like some sort of like uh moral superiority or whatever, you know?
Well, that's the thing that the far right is operating from a lot of time is that you know we are better than you, and the so
Yeah, like the typical smugness they got when they're looking at the
yeah,
left, isn't
yeah.
it?
So, and that's, and I tend to think if the best thing you got going for you is the color of your skin and that makes you superior to somebody who's brown, I mean, I'm an old white guy, so,
Yeah,
I've got that going for me. But, if the very best thing, if the most you got going for you is the color of your skin you were born with, that's kind of sad, really.
yeah,
So
it's pretty sad, isn't it?
I talked to this guy. I was in a petrol station one night. I walked in, and just as I walked in, he said, "The point of sale system has just crashed. I'm going to have to reboot the system. It's going to take about 5 minutes. Sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. You're just going to have to wait."
Yeah,
And I was like,
I'll wait.
it was
Yeah.
1 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't give a
Oh, okay.
shit. So I'm standing there talking to him, and he's very dark skinned. And so I say, "Oh, so where are you from?" And he says he's from Ghana. So we're
Mm-hmm.
chatting away. And I said, just out of curiosity, how many languages do you speak? And he says, 14. And I think, you speak 14 fucking languages. I can barely speak English. I can only make
Yeah.
myself understood about half the time. And then I laughed and I said, that's so funny because these white supremacy guys, with half their teeth missing, are going, they're saying, well, we're superior to you. I say, they barely
It's like a
speak
bunch. It's like
English.
a bunch of idiotic people with 2-digit IQ or something, right? I
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
feel like that. I had this guy who apparently lately he claims he isn't like far right or anything, but call me an F slur or whatever multiple times already, and it's like Jesus, he's desperately trying to like sort of troll me through Reddit comments and like email. And then I had like a VC with the guy. This is like a guy who hates like Patreon and all these new Web 2 internet shit that a lot of people tend to. He says he paywall everything or whatever, just for like making the basic income for paying all the bills. And like
Yeah.
this guy. It's like basically the kind of like stupid people you'd get from a KKK kind of gathering. That's basically like 40 IQ or lower. It's
The
that kind
thing
of shit.
we have to keep in mind, because so I've been doing a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. And, I've got some connections on LinkedIn that I know that they are evangelical Christians, far
Yeah,
right conservative followers. But I also know that if we didn't talk about politics, I could sit down and I could have a beer with them and talk about work and our kids and
yeah.
all those kind of
It's
things
like regular
and have
people
a
in some
great
way, the same way,
time.
right? Isn't it?
What politics has been doing over the last couple of years, and it's particularly in America, but it's moving into Europe, is working to separate us from each other.
Yeah.
And what I say to people is that if you earn your living
Mm-hmm.
from any form other than stocks and shares,
Mm-hmm.
then we're all on the same team. And we're all getting screwed by the billionaires. And if you coming to me and you're going, all those bloody whatever, you can fill that line in however you want. Those bloody dot dot dots. Then
Yeah.
you
It's
should be
yeah. I
checking your
understand
back
that.
pocket,
Mm-hmm.
because while you're believing that, some billionaire is picking your pocket because
Mm-hmm.
you are distracted with the guy who wants you to use a different toilet or the whatever. All of this distraction is
Yeah, it's the
all
basic
about,
either blue or red shit that the billionaires are trying to con us into, right? To try to separate
yeah,
us
yeah.
and everything.
And
Yeah,
the
I
funny
understand
thing
that.
is, the billionaires. So I just saw something here in America. So they're playing both sides. So the fossil fuel industry has donated in last year they gave $1.2 million to the to the Conservative Party here, and they gave $800,000 to the Labor Party, which is supposed to be the
Yeah,
party of the
that
working
is
classes.
incredibly
So
dodgy
they're
indeed.
playing both sides. They own them
Yeah.
all, and they're saying, yeah, it does. So well, there was something recently again on LinkedIn where this guy was talking about this Democrat in America who took a lot of money from what they said Republican sources. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, look at all of Congress because these big companies are giving money to both sides of politics. They might give a little more to the other side, but they own them all. And it's like Pokemon. You got to collect them all. They own them all. And so
Yeah.
when you're busy going, oh yeah, I'm a supporter of, yeah, they're owned by them too. Oh, but yeah, those bastards over there, those bastards that are that color, oh yeah, they
Mm-hmm.
own them too.
Yeah.
So there's my side and there's the slightly worse side. But what we really need to do, this is why I've connected with a whole bunch of people. The funny thing is, because I keep disagreeing with them, they slowly have all blocked me. At one point, I had a whole bunch of right wing conservative Albertan Canada oil patch workers. These guys are as far to the right. They actually wanted Alberta to secede from uh, Canada and join America. And I was like, yeah, how's your health insurance there, dude? Yeah, go to America. Yeah, where you're going to spend $100,000 a year. And if you get sick and you're in, they're oil patch workers. So they're
Mm.
working all day with toxic chemicals. You're going to end up sick, probably with cancer, and you're
Yeah.
not going to be happy when you suddenly discover you've joined America and you have no health insurance because you're unemployed now because you got sick.
Yeah, they're always fiddling with that worker class people all the time, right? Or to like push their fucking goals.
Unless unless you make your living from the returns on stocks and shares, you
Mm-hmm.
are a working class person. People like to
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I'm middle class." Oh yeah, right, okay, yeah, oh,
That's the golden rule. Yeah, that's basically the golden rule. If you're not manipulating the stock market in some way, you're like the worker class people,
yes,
basically.
and it doesn't matter. You might be on $500,000 a year as a salary, but as soon as as soon as something happens with that company, you're out of a fucking job. So, you are as much at risk as, yeah, sure, you've got $500,000 a year as income. You can always sell the fifth Lambo or something, but, you're as much at risk as but you're no billionaire. They're the
Yeah, just
ones that are
like
just
Bobby Kotick, Jeff Bezos, and all these people. If you're not them, well, you're not one of them, basically. Yeah,
yeah,
that's kind
exactly.
of funny way to see how the worker class really is and how you can distinguish people from the worker class. Because I do think last time I tried on the sort of trying to get some returns from the stock market, I didn't really do shit. It's a rigged game. Like investing in the stock market. I did this ages ago, right? But investing in the stock market as a poor person, and I don't know how the fuck do these fuckers at Wall Street bets on Reddit did already the other shit. But like, if you're like a poor person, you got very very impossible chances of like sort of getting some decent returns to like become the next billionaire or something. You know?
Well, yeah, it's as you say. I mean, the thing is, the people. Well, so one guy put it really well. I can't remember. It was one of the billionaires in America. He said, "Imagine a contest where you get 3,000 people together, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you all flip a coin. Heads I win, tails you lose. Goes through. Okay, so now 500 people are the winners, and they go up against the next guy, and they flip their coin, and the winner comes up. And so now you've got 250, and it goes down. And each time they go up against each other, they're just flipping a coin, and if it comes up the way they called it, they win. Right? Keeps narrowing it down. Now you're down to 30 people, and they've won every time, so they're still in the game. And
Mm-hmm.
then they play, and it goes down to 15 people. And now suddenly those 15 people are telling you that they're geniuses and they're writing books on their strategy about how to,
Yeah, some hustle
coin
culture
flipping.
shit, isn't it? Or like
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
they
And they're
call it,
saying I'm a
shark
genius.
mentality, as that we call it here, right? Do you want to be your own boss? Like that kind of
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Yeah, sort
Yeah,
of.
because
Yeah.
the people who know how to do that stuff are not writing books about it. They're just out there doing it. And so that's a lot of what the people who are making money in the stock market, first of all, they're doing it, they have a lot of money to play with. So, if you buy $500 worth of stocks and that money goes up to $600, then you're doing great. If it goes down to $400, you're fucked. And so, but it's like somebody, it's like somebody playing the poker at in Las Vegas. If you go in there with $1 million and you don't care whether you're gonna, your kids are still gonna go to school, and you know, and you play poker and you're not gonna lose your house, then it does. It's like, yeah, this is fun, but the stock market or playing gambling is going to
Yeah, like
be.
I will be able to say, it's just basically gambling level shit for poor people, you know?
Yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I we had a little bit of money at one, and a little bit of it has been invested, but we started with so little that. But a friend of mine bought some stocks years ago, and then after like 10 years he was like, this is just going nowhere. He'd profited a few $1,000s, and then he just said, yeah, fuck this, and he sold all the stock. He made like $1,000 off it, $2,000. The next week that
Mm-hmm.
company sold some technology, and if he'd kept the stock, it would have gone from like $5,000 to $20,000. But he just gave him the shits, and he sold it. So, and
Yeah,
then
he
there's the other
sold
side
too
of it.
early, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
by
a
a week.
recurring meme everywhere.
And then there's the other side of it. There's all those people that bought stocks back in the .com boom, and it was like, pets.com. It was going to be this huge thing. And, if you bought Amazon stock then, you'd be a fucking millionaire. But if you
Mm-hmm.
bought pets.com, you were basically lining your stock certificates, using them to line the bird cage, because they became worthless
Yeah.
basically overnight. And it's like, yeah, can you afford that? So, but I mean, I'm more on the side of being, the entrepreneur. You take some money, you build a business, you build a reputation. If you're in the stock market, you're funding someone else to do that. And you need knowledge, and you need, some information, or you need to be hooked into the circles of going, hey, mate, buy this one. Like, you get the phone call in the middle of the night, buy 20,000 shares of
Mm-hmm.
this stock. And then, so you buy it first thing the next morning, and then the next day, that company sells something, some new technology or something. But,
Yeah.
we're not hooked into those circles. Nobody, I don't hang out with the guys down at that know something's up. The there's some guy, some billionaire, who sold something like $250 million worth of his Facebook stock, and then the next day it plummeted. He knew about something.
Oh yeah, the Facebook plummet that happened recently, right? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
huge, immense that looks like kind of falling down immediately to like down a several bunch percent. Yeah, I saw that too.
yeah. I don't know. I don't pay much attention to it. I just, my interest is climate change. My interest is people, like individual people, not
Yeah,
companies. So, you know,
yeah.
that's about it. So, do you have any more questions that I can answer for you? I couldn't answer the cryptocurrency one.
Yeah, well, that pretty much wraps it up, honestly, because it's been already like 1 hour, 4 minutes. So I guess that's enough. So yeah,
Yeah,
anyway,
like
check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, our website too, JMAA.tv. And well, I'll probably see you in the next episode anyway. You have anything else to say, Keith?
just to ask your listeners to either, and I don't know if you do show notes, if you'll put my name, if people are on LinkedIn and they want to connect, I will connect with anyone on
Yeah,
LinkedIn. If
yeah.
you turn out to
Connect
be a
connect to Keith's LinkedIn. I think
LinkedIn
they're
and
probably
search
gonna
Keith
see the name
Hutchings,
around.
I'm the only Keith Hutchings in Perth, Australia. So I should be hard to find. If you want to sell me cryptocurrency, I will probably block you. If you want to
Yeah,
ask me to get
it,
married, I will probably
I
block you.
understand.
And then
Yeah,
the other thing is check
I
out our
hate
website.
cryptocurrency too as well. So I'm on that boat pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. So don't try and scam me, but if you're interested in changing the world, come and talk to me. And check out our website, thecomfortablehomeproject.com.au. And, I'd invite everyone in the world to learn about how much better their homes could be.
Yeah, that's really cool. Anyway, I'll see you in the next episode next week, and I'll see you around. See ya. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.